Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Mavericks Group Therapy Live. My name is Kirk Henderson. I am editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on our first off-season group therapy. There's not too many people in here just yet because I suppose doing things off schedule and outside of games is a little bit difficult. But I wanted to stream for a moment, just see if anybody wanted to talk and hang out because, we closed a little bit early after the Spurs game. It's been a few days of news and ongoing consensus of takes. The takes are flying. It is literally April 12th, and I'm seeing the thirstiest Mavs fans in existence already wanting to talk trades and everything else under the sun. I'll tell you that much. I am still a little bit tired and trying to sort of mentally build up for the off season. Like we said, we still have roughly 4.5 weeks until the NBA draft. So there's a lot we could talk about, a lot that has transpired, some things we could review, all sorts of elements like that. So I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. So just remember, at the top of the YouTube stream, there is a pinned post that will discuss, or that you can click into and come up here and get your takes off and talk with me. I really do like talking to you guys. That's probably why I continue to do this show. I really do enjoy this early comment. Jeff Gatlin says, I hope we are done defending poor, helpless Tim McMahon. Tim is not in need of defending, but it has been pretty weird to see how many people don't understand how reporting works. I've had some really lengthy back and forth conversations with all sorts of different people that were essentially saying that because it was from an unnamed source, it's not something we should consider because Tim could build a story around unnamed sources to get an agenda across. And I think that would actually make sense if the story was beneficial to the Mavericks. But the Mavericks, for the first time in a long time, put out some sourcing where they sort of admitted fault. And I think admitting fault is important if this team is to ever figure out where they're going to go. Leo asks me in the chat, what's my favorite take so far? I think my favorite take so far, with the playoffs not even having started yet, is that Mavs fans are talking themselves into a trade of Kyrie Irving for DeAndre Ayton. That's a fun one. Largely because the Suns haven't played a playoff minute and there's just so much that could happen. So it's like a great deal of wish casting, which is a lot of fun. Well, and so just to go back to what I was talking about a second ago, I wish Jeff would come up. We could talk about this. You're asking a leading question to get an obvious answer so you can write about the worst case scenario as if that were the first domino. I don't understand that. Why that would be the takeaway? Because the Dallas Mavericks were dog shit this year compared to last year, losing 14 more games. And if you want to say they tanked the last two, because they did, let's just say 12 more games. Man, it's just so it's one of these things where Luka was so clearly irritated by everything that you have to kind of begin to prepare yourself. Now, there were some really good takes today. Let me see if I can go find. I get so many direct messages. I got one from our guy Tyler Edsel, who's not in here right now, but he shared with me a TikTok that I think might be worth bringing up to everybody. This was a good take. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. So I'm gonna switch over and stream it, and then we can kind of talk about it. And remember, if you want to come up on stage here and talk with me, all you got to do is click that link, and you can come up here, and we will go with have a conversation. So, all right, this is from a TikTok from Kofi, who used to be
that could trade for Luka Doncic.
This is one of those funny things where like a player is too good, and it's like I think I think it was the Lakers Hulu documentary, which I seem to cite a lot for some reason, where Kobe was like looking for a trade, right? Kobe was looking for a trade, but the Lakers were like, no matter who we trade you to, the trade package is going to be so big that by the time you get there, you're going to be in the same exact position. Your team is still not going to be as good.
I like this.
So what are you going to do here? And I feel like Luka, it's probably the same thing where it's like the trade package for you is probably going to be so high that no matter where you go, it's probably going to be more of the same because you're just too good.
I really like that. Just as an exercise and a thought, because it's dead on accurate to where what the Nets did is find the perfect trade partner for them, where they're banking on, they got a really good player in Mikal Bridges, and they got a really good series of picks, and they're okay with where they are. Leo points out that man just described the Carmelo to the Knicks trade. That's exactly right. So it as we broadcast, I don't want to say potential things that could happen into the future, the thought that, Luka might request a trade somewhere, it would force just about any team to go nuclear. And that's something I'm gonna remember kind of as this progresses into next year, because our current offseason conundrum, with 4 weeks to go till the draft, is we really have to be thinking about what the kind of paths are to where at the moment they keep their pick, stay at 10. That's the most likely scenario. 80% chance of that. 20% chance fall out of the top the top 10 in somebody behind them leapfrogs them, which would be pretty devastating. And then there's a 3% chance they go up and get number one pick. And then it's not an insignificant chance to jump into the top 4. I can't remember what the numbers are. But that's sort of where we are at the moment. And when we talk about this kind of at Mavs Moneyball, and then when we think about where the Mavericks go from here, I think we'll primarily discuss them keeping the pick at 10. So I think that's what I'm going to, just kind of an editorial decision. And that's just for the next 4 weeks. We'll discuss everything, but it's kind of pointless. Like, I don't know. My buddy Dalton likes to really do a lot of wish casting out into the future. And I think that can be fun, but I also think it can it's It's a little bit of like a gambler's fallacy thing where if we haven't won the lottery before, so therefore now we're going to win the lottery. And like that, unfortunately, is not how odds work. Aswin in the chat asks, do you think Kyrie stays? Much ado about nothing when Kyrie skipped his exit interview with the media. I don't really understand why there was like noise about that, because the only questions they were going to ask him is if he was going to resign. And there's a reason that agents exist. You know, he and his agent come to an agreement, and what he's willing to take, what he's hoping for. And the question kind of becomes, do the Mavericks want to do that? And I have no idea what they'll offer him. No idea. Yeah, Jeff in the chat said most free agents skip the exit interview. And it's just, you know, I was pretty critical of the Kyrie trade because I'm not a Kyrie fan. Insofar as just some of the things that have happened over the course of his career, though I have enjoyed his time in Dallas, I just have had no problem with how he's interacted with the media. I think he's really been great. I think it helps that the Dallas media, a thing that drives me nuts is that the Mavericks media is not confrontational enough with holding the team accountable for challenges and mistakes. But I think that also makes it a more friendly environment for a guy like Kyrie Irving, who has been in media environments where all they do is ask him all sorts of stuff that he doesn't want to answer, even though, you know, he's the one that kind of, you know, sticks in it. Earlier, my friend Rolo asked if he's still in there, maybe he could come up. Somebody asked how what I think of Nico Harrison's comments yesterday. Comments is kind of an understatement. Our man Doyle Rader, who writes fairly frequently at MavsMoneyball.com, had just opted to transcribe everything Nico said yesterday. And between questions and answers, it was 3,000 words. Okay. I got a message from my editor today that said Nico Harrison is giving me strong Rob Pelinka vibes, to which I said, well, at least Rob Pelinka has autonomy, because I'm not really sure how like what role Nico plays. Like his position is general manager, but does he run the day to day? It's really peculiar out there. All right, so it's been, you know, I've been yammering to myself for 10 minutes, and we've not had anybody want to join the therapy session, and that's perfectly okay. If no one wants to join, we will end this chat a little bit earlier than intended. I'm not going to do it right now. I'll probably talk for a few more minutes, but part of the joy of this show over the last several seasons has been the interactivity with you guys. We did some after the game, and I know we have a lot of people that don't want to come up on stage, but I understand you can figure it out. So I like this comment from Simon. He says, I feel like this kind of break for Luka is going to do wonders for him. Probably hasn't been able to turn it off since 13. There's a reason why Jordan had to take a break in the middle. Maybe there's big growth coming. I hope so. I really hope so. I'm not sure if anybody listened to the post-game group therapy after the Spurs game, and our man Marco over in Slovenia, who's a sports journalist, basically said that Luka has never failed before, in the sense of in the same way the Mavericks failed this season. And sometimes you got to fail. I think it could be not, you don't want to say like you have to take a step back to take a step forward sometimes. Okay, I see somebody down there that's opted to come up. So we have Frank. Frank, I'm going to add you to the stream. Welcome to the show, Frank. What's up?
What's going on, man?
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, I was just thinking. I'm sure you saw the McMahon and Bobby Marks thing today, the 38-minute podcast or whatever. It made me wonder. Did you think any of those trade?
Talk to me about it. I actually haven't gotten to it yet. Busy day at work.
Well, you've already touched on one. That's probably you've already touched Twitter, and that's the going after DeAndre Ayton.
Okay, so that's where that came from. Interesting.
Yeah, it was like the second of two. One was like some pipe dream. They were both pipe dreams, really, but one was like a Draymond Green, whether either he signs his player option, then requests a trade, blah blah blah, or he doesn't take his player option, and then the other one was DeAndre Ayton. But just wanted to know what you thought about those. If those were, do you think they're pipe dreamy or?
I do. I think they're too pipe dreamy because there's got to be like buy-in with Kyrie, and I don't think that Kyrie is going to want to like reuniting with Kevin Durant. I think they're probably still friends, just guessing, but I also think it's probably one of those things where it didn't work. So why are we going to try it in a different place?
It's just awkward too. I mean, can you imagine having tens of millions of people just waiting to see how you guys dap up? Remember the
That's
whole
right.
KP Luka thing? You couldn't even. We were getting reports about, oh, Luka and KP were dapping up. Oh my God, everything's right with the world. Can you imagine that? I mean, it's just weird.
I can. What was the other one? What was the other trade? Sorry. Frankie, there, you're still muted.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was Draymond, DeAndre.
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
else.
That one's a little more interesting just because Draymond has so publicly negotiated, and I want to say he has a player option. And if he opts in and then requests a trade, that strikes me as something that's actually in the realm of possibility because the Warriors are so far over the cap. I don't think their GM is actually going to come back. That's been sort of bandied about, even though, and you know, Draymond's just such an interesting guy in that you wonder how his skill set would mesh with someone else. There's been times at certain points this year where he hasn't looked very good. From a sheer personality, I would be into it just because the Luka accountability factor. The man punched his own teammate while in practice. Like there's definitely a I don't give a fuck attitude.
Yeah, he's still. I still think. I just for all the semantics with that guy, he's still a leader, dude. He still just exudes leadership. If you could just for a second, not look at the antics and the technicals and all the bullshit. The guy, he's a leader, and we could use some of that. So, the other one was the first one they actually led one with was AD. Sorry if I sound out of breath. My 15-year-old he's at that age where he thinks he can take me in basketball.
Oh no, you have
I've turned
to
into
show
a golfer,
him.
and then he has the energy of a 15-year-old, and he's trying to get me to tap into, something I don't have anymore. So
no, you have to show him. Dad's strength is real. I believe in you. I believe in you. But the AD one I hate with the fire of 1,000 suns because I don't trust AD's body. The end.
No. Dude, none of these sound. They're all disgruntled.
I know.
No one's lining up to send us, some pipe dreams. So, but
right.
I'll conclude with that, man. Have a good night.
Thanks so much. Talk soon. Okay, coming up next, my man Brandon, who I did not get to the other night when I had to go. How you doing, friend? Welcome back to the show, Brandon. Give him a second. You're on mute. It's okay.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
There we go. Yeah, welcome.
Can you hear me now, Kirk?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, thanks. Man, so appreciate you for doing this. I was like, man, I thought it'd be a full house. A lot of people have a lot to say, but I guess not.
I think it's gonna take me a while because people get used to joining these after games. So now I'm gonna have to set a schedule. And I think maybe one weeknight a week, I'm going to do something like this, and maybe we can get more of the people joining that were happening during the season. Also, not enough has really happened yet to comment on. So, we'll see. So what do you got for us tonight?
The only reason I remember is you had brought up on Wednesday that you were going to bring it up. But there was a comment about the Mavs' worst season. And how they fell off after making the playoffs, after making the Western Conference Finals back then, and I guess kind of the same situation now, how they have similar parallels, how they made it one year and didn't make it the next year.
Mm-hmm.
They made it by chance, and it's kind of unfortunate how that team was kind of blown up, and this one kind of self-imploded. So I think that talent-wise, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because they're all NBA players, but I think in both instances, you can look at the brass to say that a lot of it had to do with the situations. As for the shrimp situation, him going to Indiana and Aguirre. Well, I think Aguirre wanted to leave because he wanted to win. But in both instances, you look at Aguirre and look at Jalen Brunson. I'm like, man, even now, Isaiah's, if you watch some of his interviews, he said that he don't think they would have won without Mark Aguirre.
Right.
And if Dallas, if New York, it's New York, but in a scenario where they do become successful, how much of that would you credit to Jalen? Even though it's a different regime, you would think that Dallas would learn from past issues about, self-imploding.
Well, how many teams have we seen in the last 10 years get ahead of themselves in their building process? The Hawks, the Blazers, now the Mavericks. And you can't, as an organization, you cannot assume you're going to always be back in the same position. And that's what made their offseason last year. We all had to talk ourselves into it because I think everybody understood that they got worse. Only Luka had been getting better every year. So it's like, oh, well, Luka's going to come in and be an MVP candidate. And for the first 40 games, he was. And he's still going to finish all NBA, but they just needed more. And sometimes things are just bad luck, but I hearing Nico Harrison yesterday, because he gave a really long press conference, what he a lot of what he said yesterday was the same thing he said after the Western Conference Finals, which it doesn't alarm me, but it's a little concerning because it says to me that they still don't really know how to build. And granted, because they have Kyrie to sign, I think that is going to be the pivot point, because they either sign Kyrie or they don't, and that can change everything else.
Just thinking of it from a fan's perspective, as like the building process of Dallas, on a micro scale, I could say that Dallas does terrible at building teams, but from a broader lens, you brought up Atlanta and Portland. A lot of guys aren't running to play with Dame and Trey and a lot of teams. And I don't know who brought it up. It could have been Mad Dog, could have been Stephen A. Somebody brought it up that players only want to play for 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah.
And you're lucky, and these teams are lucky to get to where Sacramento and Cleveland are, because it's by chance these teams are just successful for whatever reason. But Cleveland and Sacramento are kind of testimonies of what time can do.
Yeah.
Trial and error, if you want to call it that, but time in general, there was a plan in place. And I think a lot of people had credited Vlade for the plan that was put in place by Sacramento. I don't know, exactly to what extent it's relative now, but they credited him for that plan. You could go back to the Donnie Nelson days. Dallas has always been this shoot from the hip, run and gun team that lives and dies by the 3. There was never really a solid plan for establishing some type of culture. The Spurs has a culture. Utah had a culture.
The Mavericks culture was Dirk.
The Mavericks culture was Dirk, and it was after a while when Rick got there, 3-point shooting. And that's not a culture. That's a lifestyle, if you want to say it in an NBA term, in context of the NBA. They never had a culture. So now that Dirk's gone, they left up on Luka. I guess it was dice again, but it didn't work. So I don't know how. My point is, I don't know how capable they are to developing some type of culture, because they don't have that culture building front office, and they never really did.
Culture stuff is so difficult because it requires a level of continuity. And it's funny, we complain a lot about how the Mavericks have had the same guys, but outside of Luka being young, and then they bring in Kidd. Like the culture factor, it really, really was Brunson. And that's what makes it so frustrating, because there's not really anything to do other than sort of start over. And it's why this draft is just so stinking important. They could really change a lot of things. I mean, I know there's a lot of folks that think they're going to trade the 10th pick. I don't want them to, because I just like draft picks. I part of why I am so hard on Josh Green and Jaden Hardy is because they don't have the blue chipness. Like Dallas doesn't get, like, Luka was the first blue chip guy. I guess you could consider Dennis to a degree, but Dennis was 6'1" with a 6'1" wingspan. Like there was a limit there. And it's like the ability to go get a top 10 guy or luck into a top 4 pick is just so tantalizing. And I'm excited, and I'm also nervous. And it's just such an important summer. There's just no other way around it.
And I wonder how they're preparing for that 10th pick, because they swing and miss so much on players that they want. Mm-hmm. And you had brought it up before, like Shane Larkin, who takes Shane Larkin with the last pick in the first? And in my mind, I'm like, who takes, Justin
17th or whatever it was that they got him. They traded back. Yeah.
Yeah. Who takes Justin Anderson and who's making these decisions to, pull in these
well, Mark doesn't value the draft, in my opinion. And as a longtime Mavs fan, you will remember the 2000 NBA draft, which ended up being, like, historically one of the worst ever. Right. And the Mavericks had multiple picks that year, and the only one that panned out of, I want to say, 5 between the first and second round, the only one that panned out was Eddie Nahara, and he was the last one, and he was one that Mark Cuban says that he took. Like, he was on a podcast during the year where he said that was my guy. And okay, fine, whatever, but it's just when you run into problems, I think those things stick in your head, and it would mine. But it's just so funny. Over the past 20 years, some of my favorite players, your Josh Howards, I guess Marquise Daniels is a free agent, undrafted free agent, like Dorian Finney-Smith. But, like, paying attention to youth matters, because you get not all of them are going to shake out, but it's like minor league baseball. That's how your pipeline is just so much, I don't want to say easier to control, but banking on trades and free agents is just so risky.
If you remember, it was a while, and this has had me so, like, this dude's just Jerry Jones in the draft room. A lot of times the Mavericks would draft an overseas player, shelve them for so many years so they don't have to play them, like 4 years, and then take them off of the roster. Right. I can't remember the exact years, but he did a year. It wasn't maybe consecutive years, but it was several years that we would draft overseas player, not playing for those 4 years, and then that he would have to pay him or put him on the roster. Now, in my mind, I'm like, this dude has no interest in even looking at talent. His mindset was, go after Darren Williams, go after Jason Kidd, go after this person, go after that person, without considering youth. And it showed in the roster.
Yeah.
But I think going in with Josh Lawson, Hardy, Luka, and Kyrie, that's not the best, but that's actually talent and some athleticism, raw talent. And
I don't hate it. I will say, my man Dwight, can't remember his Twitter handle because it's got numbers that start with, it's like, he's from Detroit, I think, and then he lives in Dallas. But he said something that's going to stick with me all offseason. He says, Luka, Kyrie, Hardy, Josh Green, 4 guards, because Josh Green is a guard. He's 6'5". Like, he's not big enough to guard. Like, you saw him next to KD. He looks small. It's best that people don't get married to all 4 guards being on the team forever, just because you have to move stuff. Now, Mavs are terribly stubborn, so it wouldn't shock me if they keep all 4. But that's just, I don't think they're going to go get another guard. They're really looking for wing talent.
Dallas is always guard heavy, but I don't know. That, like you said, they need to get off of that. And just one more thing, I don't think that bringing Draymond in to be like a locker room veteran would work, because it's like fitting a square peg in a round hole. Bringing him in for one reason, Luka may look at that and that's where conflict would come in. So instead of him coming in to add to the team building, he's coming in to control it. And I don't think that a superstar is going to relinquish his dominance. The alpha male, the prideful one, like you said, Luka is going to relinquish his dominance in kowtow or really listen to somebody that's total opposite of from what I've seen Luka is regarding how he treats other people, the history of how Draymond treated other people.
Right.
I don't think that would be conducive. So I don't know. They may just have to stick with it for a couple more years, like a lot of these teams are. And, as a Mavs fan, just be realistic and all right.
See, that's what makes some of this really maddening. Is they're so it feels like to a degree Mark Cuban is so committed to being right that he will do things at the expense of the team. And let's just use Jason Kidd for an example. Jason Kidd is lower down my list of problems, really is, even though he drives me nuts. The roster is a bigger problem to me. Jason Kidd has won over 45 games in a season one time. That was last year. He is remarkably meh. And coaches, there's no salary cap for coaches. I don't know who they would go get, which is part of why I'm not like really married to them moving on from him. But that they're sitting here saying, okay, we're going to go into Luka year 6 with this guy because that's what we're going to do. I hate it. It makes me very frustrated because it doesn't seem like it was ever even a consideration. And I don't understand how he didn't do a good job this year. Like, he lost them games. And there's just elements of this that I feel like the Mavericks could fix relatively easily, but because it would require kind of an admission of a mistake.
Right.
They just didn't do it. Everybody keeps telling me about the amazing coaching that he did last year in the playoffs, and like I'm trying to remember what any of those things were outside of the fact that they played 7 guys and those guys all knew their jobs really well.
He lost the locker room early. I think of a lot of where the coach and players wasn't seeing eye to eye. The most notable when Dwight Howard and Ben Gundy got into it. It seemed like after that, the team chemistry kind of went down.
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of places where Scott was coaching.
That was what I felt after the Laker game when he basically like threw Luka. Like, he was right to criticize Luka, but he didn't do it by name. And then he also took no accountability. And I felt like the season really went to hell after that loss. I could be really overreading it, but it's something that's stuck in my head. So
yeah, and I think just one more. I think that just looking how they played on the court this year, they didn't look like they were having fun like last year. So
sure,
to me, that's probably an implication of locker room things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me, Brandon.
Thank you, Kirk. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk soon. Okay, so just while everybody's here, I want you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Click that bell too. You get notified for live rooms. Shout out to my guy in the chat. What's his name? Where did he go? Leonardo basically telling me I need to make more thumbnails for these things because it will affect, who can pop the algorithm of where they go. If anybody wants to make me a thumbnail, I don't know how to do certain stuff. I'm a 38-year-old database manager. I don't know learning a new skill at this point is like, I'm live streaming, guys. I definitely need a light. I definitely need a better camera. I definitely need more stuff behind me. You guys will notice that my that this fell down, and so there's a lot of stuff I need to work on. Trust me. And I know it, but it's a matter of not making perfect the enemy of the good, which this is tough. Micah, I just saw you in there and then you bounced. I hope you click back in because I was just getting ready to bring you up on stage. Okay, there's my friend Micah.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy and streamlined so I can spend more time on the rest of my business. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Micah, what is up? We can't
Kirk, can you
hear
hear me?
Now we can. Yes. There we go.
Okay, yeah, I just jumped on as soon as you was doing a live. What's going on?
You know, just I need for me, I operate best off a routine. So now I got to figure out what I want our off-season routine to be. I'm hopeful to do this once a week. And we will figure out time. I like doing it a little earlier just so I can hang out with my wife before she goes to bed. But if people want me to do it later, then I will. We'll figure this out.
So I mean, yeah, I'm just watching the end of the bowl season right now. That's pretty much about it right now. So ready for the playoffs. Just I'm curious what's going to happen. I'm really curious about this New York and Cleveland matchup to see how that goes. But
I am too, because they have the kind of length which should theoretically bother Jalen Brunson. There's like 4 teams in the league that I think, like the Clippers are one of them, that could really bother Brunson. That'll probably be the most fun matchup.
But that's the problem. There's only one prototype of player that gives Brunson problems. And if you don't have 3 of those guys, then it's too easy to just get that guy switched off of him. And if you're a small guard, you're cooked. If you're big, you're cooked. Well, that's the description of their team outside of Evan Mobley, maybe.
Well, I'm going to be curious because Mitchell very clearly wasn't playing defense last year. So his ability to like just try, and he has a massive wingspan. That's what made it so weird when he was just bad. And I don't know. I like Cleveland's chances. That's what makes this a great series. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, I think.
Right. I'm watching all these different teams because it's proven my point a lot. I've always said an issue with Dallas is outside of the duo. I think there's a lot of lazy analysis going on right now. Like, the greatest one, Lucas Carmelo now. What is this?
Yeah, that was an amazing.
Wow.
Colin Cowherd is not my favorite, but the man talks to himself. Like I talked to myself for 10 minutes before I was like, okay, I'm out of gas. Can somebody come help me? That guy talks for 3 hours at a time, like every day to himself. And so it's like, you're going to have some stinkers. the Melo. I love early stage Carmelo, but like him and Luka are nothing alike. Like nothing alike.
No, it's just it's a lot of people being disingenuous. All you got to do is like at first I was looking at it with like say 20 teams in the league, and then I even looked at it 10.
I don't wonder if that's Micah's internet or mine because he was talking and then he just froze up
Having
on me.
yeah, okay, yeah, but they simultaneously have a top 5 duo while also having a bottom 5 core. Like the 3 people that we start, I can't really think of outside of Luka and Kyrie. I can't think of maybe even 5 teams that they start for. And it's been this constant malpractice for over a decade that's eventually led us to this point, what we're looking at now. The devaluation of mid-level guys, like letting Tyson Chandler walk just to see him go be all-star, first team all defense, DPOY, his first 2 seasons with New York. So just like that, we only mark. It feels like after the championship team, he has just wanted to run this like a fantasy basketball team because, I mean, he basically called himself out in the interview. He is the GM, and it's hilarious that he talked about how people were nervous about him being an owner because they were worried he would be the Jerry Jones of the NBA. And here we are. He's the Jerry Jones of the NBA.
Right. It took him 10 years, and then he just kind of lost steam. And so I had one person describe him to me as the person who makes all the final decisions, but he doesn't really participate in any of the work to get to the final decisions. And so he, like this will kill people. It's 4 years later, but I had heard on a rumor, pretty good rumor, that the Mavericks had not, like, before free agency 2019, they had the opportunity. They basically had a deal in place with my favorite shooting guard in the NBA, Alex Caruso, only for the Mavericks to change their mind and go with Boban instead. Like, boom.
God,
now it's 4 years ago.
That's a good point.
It's unverifiable. So, but I again, like I've mentioned lately how I hear stuff all the time. Like I heard this long time ago. And so it's just like, okay, well, that was before Caruso really blew up. It's like, well, instead it's like you have basketball people in place to do basketball things. You have to let them do the basketball things. And I feel like the structure of the Mavericks front office is better than it was by the time Donnie Nelson left, because Donnie was not interested in basketball. I really feel that way. Donnie had so much side stuff going on around Dallas that the Mavericks were not his first thing. And, Cuban was listening to her all about Vulgaris by a ton at that point. At least now, I feel like there's like a hierarchy where, Cuban sits at the top of it, but it's Kid and Nico. Those are the 2 people who he listens to. And it's at least there's a structure. And the problem now is that they're so far behind the 8 ball, they only have limited moves they could make. Like, it was truly wild to hear Kid be like, none of these guys are going to be back, basically, after the which game was that? The Bulls game. And then like we see who was it? It was one. Oh shoot. My man kicked himself off stage because his internet stinks. We had a couple, like it was one of the twins, and then Markieff Morris, and then our least favorite podcaster and triple double machine. Why are like the Mavericks players' names slipping my mind? That's how tired I am. Those guys are acting like they're going to be back. like none, realistically, I think the Mavericks should do their best to find all new guys. And that includes like Dwight Powell, who it's like, oh, well, he could come back for a minimum deal. And it's like, no, because that means he's still going to get like 20 minutes a game. It'll drive me crazy if most of these guys are back. They have to find a way to move on from some of these guys and truly have a fresh start. I mean, when Dirk Nowitzki was, if you look at like their teams in the early 2000s, you had the Nash team with him and Finley, and then they moved on from Nash, and then they had the team from like 2005 to 2008-ish, and then they started turning over guys again because 2008 was when they went and got Jason Kidd. And then they played that string through up until 2010, 2011, the championship season, when they brought on Tyson, just very luckily, because they had Brandon Haywood signed into a deal and they had to go tell him, hey, we have a chance at Tyson. Do you mind? So there's just not been near enough turnover with this Mavericks team with the kind of player that Luka Doncic is. And I think they've sort of finally figured that out. Okay. So sorry to lose my man, who Micah, who was up here. Looked like his internet died on him. If anybody else wants to come up and chat, please do hit that notification. Otherwise, I'm probably going to close this one up. It's been about 40 minutes of rambling. As always, I appreciate the feedback. I've gotten some really good feedback, both on the audio, which I can't really do a ton about. I'm not an audio engineer. Video, I think Josh and I can both improve. Surroundings, we'll figure that out. But my wife, my bedroom is like right on the other side of this, so my wife occasionally is like, "You're not doing this." Wow. Okay, Cliff, thank you for this. Bobby Marks said that Luka was the first Mav to sign a rookie extension since Devin Harris in 2008. That's nearly impossible. It's really not when you think about who all came through, because Roddy Beaubois, they moved away from him. They moved off of Shane Larkin. They moved off Dominic Jones. They moved off of the guy from UVA. And it really is, it takes longer than you might think, because you really got to get the right guy. Like Josh, they'll re-sign Josh Green this summer. So we'll see. So this is an interesting comment. Let's see, it was, where did it go here? He said, drop, Angela says, drop everyone else. And what do you think Luka will think? Relationships matter. It's a good comment and a good point, though. I do think Luka wants to win, because he was okay with them shipping off Dorian Finney-Smith, who was his best friend. He clearly is not pleased about them missing out on Brunson. So we'll and none of us are at this point. We got a new caller in the waiting room. I'm going to bring up Matt. Matt, welcome to the show. What's up tonight?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. We can see it too. Thank you for using your camera.
Yeah. This is my first time on the new platform, the YouTube platform. So for some reason, though, I turned on your alerts to get notified when you go on, but I didn't get this alert. So my bad.
Well, it's okay. I mean, that's why we'll talk for a while. I'll try to do these on a schedule, and I'll start announcing it on other shows, just so, because, this goes to the podcast feed. I'm going to do a Moneyball Minute probably Friday morning. Josh Bowe and I might record tomorrow night too. I'm still willy-nilly, because it's like, I'm worried if I stop doing stuff, I just won't pick it up again, because like I watched like 4 episodes of Picard last night. It was like, this is great. I don't have to think about basketball, but the problem is I like talking to everybody.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
What are you thinking tonight?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, like, as a fan, after the Lakers game, I pretty much stopped watching the Lakers game that we blew.
Yes.
The 29 point lead, whatever it was. I am really, I feel like I am a diehard Mavs fan, but man, I was just like, yo, like, this is time that I feel like I could be doing something else right now. And it was just, getting to the end of the season, I wasn't really so much pissed. I was just sad, really. Like, but I will say that I think Nico's press conference was fairly encouraging for the most part. I liked that he said that the season was unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that specifically came from a question about like how he would respond to fans, I guess, that are frustrated. And, you know, his first answer to that was they should be frustrated like I'm frustrated. And he's saying all the things I wish Kid would say, you know, like he's taking ownership like I wish Kid would, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like it's the little gestures go a long way. Like Carlisle did it too much where he was just like, this is on me. And it's like, no, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when he was asked about how the job that Jason Kidd did, he didn't say he did a good job or a bad job. He just said he's our coach, and when you don't meet your goals, everyone has to be evaluated, including myself. And I thought that was like super encouraging to me because I was concerned he was going to be like, yeah, he did a good job, and you know, tried to kind of spin it in a certain direction, but he kind of gave a fairly neutral answer. But I actually asked the Locked On Mavs guys this. I'm kind of curious to get your take. Do you think that Jason Kidd will have a bit of a shorter leash next season? Meaning, like, if the team gets off to a bad start, like, could you see Nico pulling the plug basically and saying, hey,
it would require. This is a great question. It would require a player doing it. Chris Middleton basically was like, I'm not playing for this guy anymore. I'm going to go be injured until he's done. And they were roughly 500 when that happened. I'm pretty sure it's not been reported anywhere, but I am very confident in saying that. It's nuts. I'm pretty sure he's going to be here until Luka or somebody is like, all right, no, thank you. And they must all have good working relationships. You know, they all seem to clearly like him. I mean, I always loved when like Callie Kaplan got some people on record where she's Josh Green was like, oh yeah, he's great. It's like, well, what do you like? If you ask me on the record if I love my boss, love him, great guy, coolest dude in the world.
Yeah,
what are you supposed to say?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember you saying that, and I think it was a podcast with Josh. But yeah, yeah. So that's kind of how I'm feeling on things. You know, I think I try and stay optimistic for the most part.
Well, not watching will keep you optimistic. So you did that. That's a great call. Like, because you missed all the losses.
Yeah, I mean, I kept up with like the scores and everything, but no, I used to watch every minute of every game, and then it just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is just like I could be doing other things with my time, and you know, that made me be less of a fan. I don't know, but anyway, I felt like I was going to say something else, and I just can't remember. But no, but I love this new platform that you got going on. And hoping to hop on more for sure.
Sure. No, I'll try to do these regularly, and you know, Josh and I are going to keep recording. We'll figure some stuff out. I really want to do a live one the night of the draft lottery, but I'm pretty sure my wife is out of town. In the draft lottery, it's usually Eastern Conference Finals. It's around the conference finals that time. And the games are usually at that point all prime time. And I'm like, can I get my child to bed? Or should I have my child sit in on the live show? That would probably be stupid because he would just like, yeah, like he's like a Twitter reply guy where he just wants to know what's going on all the time. But yeah, please join, tell friends. The whole point of this show, part of why I did this, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Nick and Isaac are in the same boat, is like, you just want to talk basketball with your friends. And no one now that I live in Dallas, it's a lot easier. It's like I'm still getting used to the fact that I drive around. It's like, oh, people with Mavs gear. This is cool. But I like being able to like talk with people about it because like Twitter sucks. Replies to articles all suck. Like everybody's just mean unless they're like actually talking. So this has been fun.
Yeah, I do remember something I was going to say.
Oh, cool. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I had asked the Locked On guys that question because they have this new subtext thing that you can support them and be able to text the Locked On Mavs guys.
Cool.
And they'll text you back and stuff. It's pretty cool so far. And I asked him the same question, and Nick was like, I don't think so. It would take like an 0-10 start for something like that to happen. And I could definitely see that. I then told him, I was like, it's should they versus will they are like two different questions, to consider when it comes to the front office. And since this front office is new, it's kind of hard to predict that as well. Like who knows if Nico would make a move like that. Like you said, if a player demands it, then you kind of have to, I think, at that point. And I think he would at that point. But yeah. But we'll see, I guess. Because I mean, after a season like this, I feel like most coaches would be, in the unemployment line. But
I mean, David Johnson was fired a year after going to the finals.
Right. And but the fact that
I can't remember. No, he was fired mid 2008. That's what it was.
Yes, right.
He got fired, ironically enough, after not playing Jason Kidd. That's one of the things that will stand out in my mind forever, because Jason Kidd was traded from the Spurs, and he didn't put him. No, it was a Spurs game where he took Jason Kidd out at the end because he said Kidd didn't know the plays, and it was like, this is Jason Kidd we're talking about. Why are you doing this? Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah. And I think if like the Mavs were to get into like a really bad start, there's other things to consider too. If Kidd kept doing the goofy like no timeouts when most coaches would, or some weird rotation stuff, I think that would play a big factor too. So there's a whole bunch of things that go into, I think, like when you think about his job security and that kind of thing. But for the most part, I'm completely out on Kidd, but I kind of understand giving him another season, but it better be just another season. So
we'll see. I mean, you never, like, things change really quickly. I mean, like, look at it's sometimes all it takes is a day and things go to hell. So we're about to find out. But thanks once again, Matt, for joining.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll look to contribute more for sure.
Appreciate it. Talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks.
We got one more guy coming in. My man, David Trink, who writes for Mavs Moneyball. What's up, guy?
What's up, Kirk? How are you? Can you hear me?
Just, yeah, we can hear you great. Just, doing internet streaming like a youth, but I'm old.
There you go. So. Yeah, I wanted to come in here and talk about how you were saying before the Mavs roster needs like complete turnover, which I agree. I tweeted the other day, they need to, if 2 or 3 guys outside of Luka and Kyrie are on the roster next year, it's not going to be what the Mavs need. It's not going to be a good enough offseason. Like, it needs to be the 5, 6, 7 through 15 guys.
A true like shuffling.
Over.
Like, even if you're moving for not great guys, like, we need different not great guys.
Right. And I was thinking about it, and it's like, and I think I might write about, or I'm probably going to write about this, but you can always, even though we do need change, it can always be worse. It doesn't have to be good change. There could always come bad change. And like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, the Mavs need better players. They need different players. How are they going to do that? And so we hopefully will retain the pick. I mean, God, if they don't retain their pick, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
But they retain the pick, let's say. Okay, they have to re-sign Kyrie, and I think Kyrie has to re-sign with Dallas to get the money that he wants. Then they have Tim, I guess, and those are like their 3 big assets, really. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, how are they going to upgrade the roster? Like, pretty much everyone, I guess, Hardy and Josh Green are 2 guys that theoretically are dispensable, but I like Hardy a lot, and I like Josh Green too as a role player.
Yep.
So it's like, you wouldn't want to get rid of those guys, especially because they're like the youngest guys on the team. And so it's like, where is this turnover going to come from? Like, everyone outside of the guys I've already named, it's like if you trade them, you can only trade them for guys that are like equal or worse. So it's like, yeah, we need change, but like the the expectation shouldn't be that this change will completely turn it around. It's like we could end up with more Reggie Bullocks and more Maxi Klebas, and that would not surprise me.
But I wouldn't hate that because it's different than Reggie Bullock and Maxi Kleba because we've just seen this movie before. Like Maxi for if you play Maxi 15 minutes a game, granted his extension he's got 3 more years on his extension. I'm not sure what the market would be for him. He's probably overpaid, but I also think he has a strong reputation. And so
that's what I think he's living on that right now.
Right. So could you trade him to an honest to God contender? Could you trade him to the Bucks for something? I'm just making something up here.
Yeah.
Would one of your top 5 teams in the league be willing to eat Maxi Kleba in exchange for something that's not working out for them? And I think the answer to that, honestly, is yes.
Probably.
You kind of go down the lineup. We all would have said Maxi Kleba is not tradable. We all would have said Tim Hardaway is not tradable. And I think to a degree, Tim Hardaway went from being we were ready to is this the worst contract in the league type stuff? And now he had a pretty good year. And I think that, the right team might be interested in that. Now I don't want to do the wish casting crap where we start throwing teams out there, but that's kind of where it is at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Marcellus says Grayson Allen. I would die, but that is the kind of thing that it's like one not great guy for a different not great guy.
Right. Yeah. See, I mean, I completely agree about we need to change it up just because I'm tired of watching the same story over and over. But I'm also very afraid that they're going to change. They don't have a track record that we can look at and say, okay, change it can't get worse, because it could get worse. They hired Jason Kidd.
But they did, we have to give some credit from the fact that, okay, I still know Cuban's at the center of this, but they moved on from Porzingis. Yes,
True.
They whiffed on Brunson. Yes, they signed JaVale. So 1 good thing, 2 bad things. And then they brought on Kyrie, which I think in a basketball sense was a good gamble. And in everything else sense, we're probably going to get hurt because that's the way the Kyrie experience works. But for now, it's been okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's true. I think, I'm really interested to see where they're going to go this summer because theoretically, I mean, thinking about it to really balance out the team in a way that Luka needs to have a contender. I mean, I think the easiest path is a big sign and trade for Kyrie for something because if you re-sign Kyrie and then you work around him and Luka and trade these ancillary pieces, I mean, what are we getting really that will move the needle for these other guys? I guess Tim could if someone is, dumb or smart enough to trade Tim some wing defender kind of guy that can attack for Tim, and you get a guy like that, I have no idea who that would be.
You just got to take big. I honestly think big swings are in mind. Cuban has referenced a couple of times how he only does stuff if he thinks their Mavs are going to be big winners. I don't think you can do that. I think there's something. It's like a fantasy football trade where everybody walks away mildly annoyed, but it's a different look, and that's really what the Mavericks need is a different look.
Right. Yeah, and to go back to Kidd, I think I said this earlier in the season, but obviously I don't think Kidd was that great this year, but to his credit, the roster didn't do him any favors. Joe Mazzulla does the same thing that Kidd does, where he doesn't call timeouts. He lets his guys play through. And the Celtics, no one thinks the Celtics are worse because of their head coach. He has players that he can do that for. Obviously their roster is much more well-rounded and can withstand a punch because guys can dribble. But it's if Kidd did have a better roster, I think we've seen him be good at times. He has done good things. He hasn't put it together for, X amount of time, but he has been good at times. So I would be interested to see if they do shake up the roster, they get hopefully better players, what he can do with that. And I know, like, obviously, we've talked about him never really putting 2 years back to back, like good years back to back. But like, yeah, I think I also think that his assistant coaches matter a lot. I think losing Igor hurt, especially Luka. And I think if they like can shore up the roster and maybe I don't know if the assistant coaches are even on their mind, but if they can get some sort of shakeup in the coaching staff. I mean, like, what does Jared Dudley do? Is Jared Dudley really
him pining for like he wants to be a future head coach? That was the thing that was like put out into the void, and it's like, what?
Yeah,
like I mean, maybe one day. I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to kill the guy. Knowing my luck, he would like join the chat and ask to come up on stage, and I'd have to be like, I'm sorry, Jared. I don't like. To me, you're like the guy in Office Space who's like, I take the specs to the customers, and it's like, what? No. So.
Yeah, I feel like the Mavs have a lot of guys where you go, what does he do exactly, including players?
That's right.
And I think, like, I mean, you have to get rid of a Theo, where it's like, I mean, even though this is probably bad timing considering his most recent performance, but like you have to pay attention to every single spot on the roster. Like, it has to matter. They cannot just be signing any more vibes guys anymore, because the vibes will be terrible in the end when we lose.
Yeah. You know what corrects vibes? Winning.
Yeah, that's true. So. Winning heals all, and they did not do that this season. So
that's right.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that to the forefront. That I know everyone's expecting change and expecting it to be good. I know I am. I'm hoping for it to be good. I'm expecting change. I'm hoping it's good. But like, there is a chance that they could turn over this roster and it could be worse.
It can always get worse. Mavs fan mantra.
Yeah. And with Kid, like I know I don't want Kid here anymore. But they could always hire a worse coach.
It's true. That's the couple of people pointed that out to me.
Probably,
that's a good take.
Yeah, which is probably worse than getting worse players.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to hang out with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, man. That was David Trink. He is a contributor over at MavsMoneyball.com. We appreciate his time. Coming up next, then, and lastly, perhaps, is my friend John. John, welcome to the show again. Look at you. You made it again.
What's up, man? Dude, I just walked in from trivia downtown. So
I could see you walking home in the thing.
Yeah, you watched the journey. So to David's point, could they hire a coach worse than Jason Kidd?
Oh yeah.
You think?
Because Kidd is the main thing to remember for Kidd is that he carries a certain level of cachet because he's Jason Kidd. He can lose that, but do you remember when the Bulls hired Boylan? Was that his name? He was a longtime bench coach. He coached the team USA at the Worlds, but he just was not an NBA head coach. And there's a lot of guys that are like that just kind of hit their ceiling, and they might be liked, but they're not listened to over an 82 game year, because being an NBA head coach is about X's and O's, but I would argue it's probably much more akin to like being a manager, because you got to deal with people's, temperaments. You got to figure out what's bothering them. You got to be a little bit of a therapist. Like, there's all sorts of stuff going on to be a head coach, I think.
Yeah, you're in and out like all day, and so I totally get that. I do. David said, like, they got to get away from this vibes based thing. That seems right to me. That like they've been riding on vibes for a minute.
Yeah.
And trusting the vibes, and as you and I have talked about over the last week or two, like, the Mavs teams with Dirk, they shuffled guys in and out so much. Like that, like they changed the roster over every year. Like that year they lost to the Nuggets in the second round. had so many guys that like do not matter and did not matter, and they rolled them in and rolled them out. I was like, oh, that doesn't fit. That guy doesn't fit, and I don't know. I don't know how you get back to that, because they blew so many assets on Porzingis. They blew so many assets. I don't know how you get back to that, but it's clear that like Luka and Kyrie is something you can build around. Josh Green and Hardy, I think, can play. Like, they're NBA players.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, you can kind of see it's like, oh, Dwight Powell, they like the vibes.
Yeah.
Versus the talent. And I mean, I was like I said, it was a trivia, and the Bulls Raptors game was on, and I was like, if you swapped Luka for Zach LaVine onto the Bulls, or just swap the role players from the Bulls onto the Mavs, I think that team is pretty good. Like, I just want some good players, like just good. Like, they have good players.
I would like to see it. Like, that's more it's like we've seen this movie so many times, and because Bullock worked, they're like, okay, we're just gonna roll this, we're gonna roll it out again. We're gonna see how, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah, just sorry, I'm on my phone. I don't know where to look. I'm very self-conscious.
Don't worry. It's like, look, just look at your screen. That's
There's
all I do.
40 people listening to send it. Yeah,
that's fine.
But like, just have good players. Like, I was watching the Raptors and the Bulls, and I was like, these teams, how are these teams better than the Mavericks? And it's not Luka.
No.
That's what's crazy. I mean,
Angel in the chat is saying if Luka's vibes were better, maybe this team is in the playoffs. I mean, they didn't get blown out in a game Luka played from January 5th on. They lost a lot of games. They played so many clutch games. Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. I think they regressed over the last 3 years, so 2020 and 2021. They probably were ahead of their expectations in terms of wins. This year they regressed, and then they lost those 2 games at the end of the year on purpose. So we're talking, if they change 4 games, 5 games, the entire vibe of the season is probably different. But they lost so many awful games, either due to kids coaching, defense, all of the above. And so it's let's just rebuild it and see what they can do differently.
Yeah. And there is something to just being a good team that you know how to win those games.
Mm-hmm.
Like and we saw it over and over again with in the Dirk era, and like you just see it with good teams. It's like, oh, when it gets close, they know how to win. And they know how to win because they know they have chemistry. They know who does what. They know where to go, what they need to do to get a basket, what they need to do to get a stop. I think Nick over at Locked On said, like, this team has no identity, no sense of who they are, no sense of who plays where. And I remember after the Kyrie trade, watching a game, and it was like, I'm trying to remember who's on the floor. It was like Luka, Reggie, Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, and Maxey. So not like even a great set of guys together, but guys that have logged minutes. Like not that they've all logged, that 5 has logged a lot of minutes together, but those guys have played a lot of minutes in some combination. And it was like, oh, it made sense. Like, they knew where to go. You could tell they knew how to play off of each other. And I don't know how they get back to that. I don't know where that comes from. It's coaching. I feel like Christian Wood was never given a chance to find whatever role he might have.
Yeah.
It just all feels like a fucking mess. And it ultimately, to me, goes back to Cuban.
Sure.
Like, is a Cuban thing. And this is the one thing I wanted to ask you about. So Jason Kidd is a former player, now coach. Nico is a former Nike executive, now GM. What is the who are the best former players coaches that are now coaches? And I mean, Steve Kerr is obviously the one that is
Carlisle.
Yes, and Carlisle played for one season, or
He played more than that, but he was
a couple
bench
seasons.
guy.
Oh, like,
Yeah, he was.
He was not.
definitely
He was not a
player.
Hall of Fame point
Yeah.
guard. Yeah, he did have a long career.
The guy down New Orleans, Willie Green. He's a player.
Yeah.
He's been pretty successful. I mean, by and large, though, superstar players are not successful coaches.
Right, and I think some of it's because they just spend so long being players, and that like being a coach is a different thing. And
Yeah,
so when you spend
totally.
a lot of time being an assistant coach, you learn how to be a coach.
That's right.
As in any profession, when you learn how to do the thing just by virtue of doing it on a lower level.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Jason Kidd's a good coach. Nico might be a good GM, you know, like for all his faults, Donnie Nelson was a pretty good GM.
Yeah, but by the end, he was just not doing his job. And so it's
right. He'd worn out his welcome, but for what 15 years he'd put together a winning team.
Yeah,
every year, and he drafted Luka, and that's where it comes to. That's what it comes down to me is like just hire a good coach, a good coach, get a good GM. But man, I don't know. I've not felt this despondent about the Mavs in so long. And we could have a top 10 pick, and it could all turn around.
Well, we'll see. Thanks for hanging out, John.
We'll see. Yeah, man. Good chat. Thanks for letting me come in.
Oh yeah, no, we'll be back next week. I'm going to try to do one of these a week. I'm going to figure out time and place, and then I'll be broadcasting when I'm going to do it on the other shows, so people can know when to join. All right,
perfect.
Appreciate it.
See you, dude.
Okay, coming up next is my man Chris. Hey, Chris, what's up tonight?
Hey, Kirk, how you doing?
I'm good.
I just hopped on like 10 minutes ago, so I obviously forgot to turn on the notification bell.
That is okay. What are you thinking?
Nothing. Well, actually, the last few days I've been thinking about the basketball gods here. So my fear here is that we lose our pick because the NBA is going to spite us, and then everybody can say, "Oh, this is the basketball gods punished you guys for tanking." What is our penalty if that doesn't happen? Can we still lose our pick because of this whole investigation thing that's going on? Or
so it's on the table, but I don't think the NBA does that because there's too many other incidents that have been much more obvious.
Exactly.
I would say that so Cuban was fined $600,000 in 2018 for talking on I think it was Dr. J's podcast about how he took everybody to dinner and was like, it's in our best interest to lose. He just admitted to it. Cuban always does the quiet part loud. Why? I don't know. I want to say it's because he doesn't care, but it's bizarre. I think he gets fined, and I think the fine is somehow larger than that fine, even though this is in my opinion, much lesser offense.
Yeah. I hate, I'm guilty of going on watching First Take on ESPN. I just hear all this crap. I'm like, Kendrick Perkins is talking about, they don't know what would happen with the Thunder and Grizzlies game. Yes, we do. It
was done.
Even because I know the Thunder ended up not playing their starter. Memphis didn't play their starter, but that doesn't matter. If the Mavs would have won those last two games, the Thunder was going to play their starters. Memphis wasn't going to play the starters. There's just no way.
There's no way. Bill Simmons keeps saying nonsense on the Mavs on his different shows, and it's I really want people to explain to him that by the time the Mavericks opted to sit Luka Doncic, they would have had the only way the Mavericks would have gotten in is if the Thunder lost. And at that point, it was we knew Memphis was sitting people. This whole notion that the Mavericks did something uber wrong is it's bizarre to me. It was strategically wise, and I'm sorry. It was the first decent thing they did all year because they kept losing games they should win, and they were winning games they should lose.
And what if they would have won against the Bulls, play the Spurs, and Lucas strains his calf in the third quarter?
There's still the one that pisses me off. If you go look at the win-loss record, just all in a row, it's the Lakers game and the Spurs game where they won those two. Where had they lost either one of those, it would have been 8 and 9 games that they lost. The Mavericks were so bad in March, and people just don't want to talk about it.
I'm just hoping and praying. I know we got 4 or 5 weeks until the Western Conference Finals draft lottery. I just hope we can at least keep our draft pick. I mean, fingers crossed about top 4 pick or even Wemby. You're literally hitting the lottery there. But if we get that top 10 pick, I mean, I know that player is not going to play for the Mavericks. It's most likely going to end up being in a trade, get some win now players, hopefully bolster the defense up. But I just don't want to give anything back to the Knicks. I mean, they can have our draft pick next year, or I don't think we'll be that bad. We'll miss the play-in again.
Yeah.
But this year, hopefully keep our draft pick. And
see,
is there any other Mavs news you know of? I've been looking, but I guess I didn't really see the Nico Harrison interview. I haven't seen it at all. But
it's good. So on checkmavsmoneyball.com, we did a quote board, so you don't got to watch it. It's like he answered a lot of stuff. He did a pretty honest job, but it still doesn't leave you with a lot of confidence.
Yeah. I was reading some of that, but I'm like, Mark Cuban's the one making the decisions. Like
I know.
Making it seem like he's just a puppet to me until something. I mean, the Kyrie Irving trade was good. I mean, we just got to keep. This is just a disappointing season, but like I said, hopefully we can keep our draft pick and go from there and just rebuild in some kind of way. So I just don't want Dwight Powell starting center anymore. We all don't want that. So I guess be on next week. You do this once a week.
Probably, and I'll be broadcasting when I'm going to do it. I got to figure out times. I could tell my wife popped her head in here, and either she didn't hear me say that I was going to do this, or was ignoring me and was like, "Why are you doing this?"
Okay, I'll turn on the notification bell. I'll get on earlier.
Appreciate it so much. All right. All right. So the things could obviously be worse, guys. The Raptors missed 17 free throws in a game decided by 4 points. 17 free throws. No, 18 free throws. My God. Pascal Siakam missed 6 all by his lonesome. OG Anunoby missed 5. Good gracious. What a disaster of a loss. Nick Nurse may go wandering into the woods. Man. All right, team. Please do me a favor, subscribe, like, tell your friends. This show only grows because of folks like you. Like I said earlier, I'm going to try to do a better job with audio and video at some point, but today's not that day. Thanks so much for hanging out, and be looking for podcasts. Josh and I are probably going to record tomorrow night, but it'll be one where it's just him and I talking, and you guys can be in the chat. So thanks so much for hanging out. Go Mavs.